Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, Team Wilpers crew. My name is Justin Harris. I'm one of the coaches at Team Wilpers, and welcome to our fun Fall Run Challenge 2025, where we're focusing on developing throughout the year across multiple speed zones, multiple efforts, different distance foci, something like that, right? Anyway, I just, but this plan, we are focusing on 10K and half marathon. And over the 6 weeks, we are trying to build you up. So, in order to get our training, first, let's check in with all access. So, what we do that's different than most other plans is other plans are like static and you do the training and there's no real engagement or interaction. Here at Team Wilpers, for our challenges, both for cycling and running, what we do is we provide training for you and we have these athlete briefings that we check in. And we also have Facebook and all that stuff, which I'll get to. But what's really cool is that we, on our all access plan, you can change your difficulty settings from the moderate, which is the baseline, or you can make it easier if you're a walk jogger, and you can make it more difficult if you're want and this is the key thing, that you can handle more volume. All right, just because it's harder, we think it's better. It's not necessarily the right fit for everybody. Okay. So, one of the cool things with all access is you get access to strength. So, there's strength that's paired with this on 3 days a week through the plan. And then you also have access for $10 a month. You get access to all kinds of stuff like training plans, different marathon, half marathon, intermediate, novice, beginner, whatever. Just a great value to you all at our beta price. So make sure you check that out and get access to that. Before I get into too much, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, make sure to comment. And especially if you're watching us live, comment in there. At the end of the show, I go back and I look through your comments and I answer them. So if you have any questions, concerns are popping up, or things you're curious about, put them in those comments and I will see them and we'll get going with them. All right. So, how does this all work? You've been around, there's a lot of people that are coming new, and essentially, is what we're how you engage with the community, which is the other thing that separates us. In our running group, we have 12,000 people that are engaging, asking questions, showing victories, talking about challenges, and everyone's chiming in and helping out. So make sure you follow us on Facebook at Team Wilpers, and specifically Team Wilpers Running. That's where you're going to get. Uh, um, that's where you're going to be able to post some question stuff. I go in there, I answer some questions, try to help guide you, okay, the best that I can, and go from there. You also can follow us on Team Wilpers on Instagram, okay? And then I'm Jay Harris Coaching on both Instagram and Facebook. I am interacting way more on Instagram, so just keep that in mind. Okay. So as we move along, week two, we're in week two of the 6 week build. So this is block one. We're doing 2 3 week blocks. So week one, we introduced the concept, threshold repeats, quarters. Week two, we up some of the volume across all the difficulty levels. And we went from a flat long run to this weekend, you have a half marathon goal pace run. So kind of going in and out of half marathon pace to get a little bit exposure now with those distances, velocities, intensities, so on and so forth. All right. So make sure that you're following your paces. I keep seeing this across the board, particularly for quarters where people are ripping them. And can you run faster on quarter repeats for VO2 max? Absolutely. At the end of the day, VO2 max is really what you can do 7 to 10 minutes all out, right? So if we only do 400 meters, that could be anywhere from 75 seconds for some, all the way up to 3 minutes for some. That's okay. But at the end of the day, of course, you can go a little bit faster. So, be mindful there. I'm not saying you have to stay at the exact pace, but, if you're dropping like 30 seconds faster per mile for that portion of time, I would say leave that for the other things. All right. Maybe you try the difficulty week if you're on moderate instead of really hammering the moderate week and overdoing it, going above plan, because each difficulty level is meant to build through the 6 weeks for all of you. All right. So keep that in mind. All right. So we're on week number 3. All right. So we have 2 3-week blocks. All right. And some of the challenges we do 8 weeks, some of them are 6 weeks. We play around with it to just show you different types of training plans, the different things that we can do in these training plans, because sometimes there's, some opportunities that are available when we uh, do longer blocks, like we can get in a little bit more volume, but sometimes we are hanging on by week 3, and we really need week 4. In a 3-week block, we are going to be oscillating, a little bit more quickly, and it's a way that we can manage fatigue. So if you're a full schedule athlete, this is what I call people that have busy schedules and families and jobs, and or maybe something's happening that's challenging your life or whatever, that your schedule is just full, or whatever it is, right? It's really easy to bury yourself and get in the trenches deep by thinking that working hard is the only answer to getting better. Meaning, we can play with frequency, how many times a week we're training. We can play with duration, how long we're going, and we can play with intensity. And most people go to intensity first. And really, the way for healthy training is now, this is not one size fits all. There's different things, but you want to get your frequency of training up to a certain level, and then you want to add some duration to it, and then you get some intensity. So that keeps you in a safer place to be able to handle it, because intensity, as I've said before, like aerobic runs, aerobic efforts are like chicken noodle soup for the endurance athlete, right? It's good for us. If we're not feeling well, that's where we want to go to. Okay. So on the upper end, this stuff is like taking a shot of alcohol, like a little goes a long way. So keep in mind with this concept when we're talking about unloading volume, is we're trying to be proactive with recovery instead of reactive with injury or recovery. Okay. And one thing I want to, before I kind of get into the do's and don'ts, is I want to show one of my athletes. So we utilize, for our private clients, we utilize Training Peaks, a software where um, we can write training, and we can send workouts to your watch, and we get a lot of information back to us. So it's a really dynamic process, much more than what we're able to provide here. So in our one-on-one coaching, this is a dashboard from Training Peaks. And so this is a client who uh, is in their early 40s. They have 2 kids. They work a big job that creates a full schedule. They travel multiple times a month, on most months, to for work. And they're full schedule, but they're running a good amount of volume. When I first started working with them, I pulled their volume down back a little bit, and we went from like 320s at New York City to I believe it was 314 in Chicago a couple years ago. They qualify for Boston, and then this is um, uh, Boston and on. So I want to zoom in here to kind of look at what's going on here, and I doubt you can see my cursor, but when we're looking at this chart, just look at blue line is really kind of like training load, and uh, ignore the pink and yellow lines. Those are kind of like fitness and fatigue, and there's some different things. But the one thing I want to look at is if you see the big pink spike to the left, that's essentially Boston. So that's a big training load. If we think of a workout we have to recover from, well, a race we have to cover from. So we were building up, and if you can see the little dip just before that spike, that's their training load reducing. That's unloading volume going into races, and this is necessary in order to get your best. Well, they peak up, and then after a race, we have recovery, right? And for a marathon, I think it takes somewhere, for full recovery, somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks. And I know that's controversial, but there's a lot of reasons why that I'll be talking on my newsletter and different stuff about, and maybe in some of these challenges. But nonetheless, training volume's going down. So after that big pink spike, and where you see the yellow, bumping up, the blue line is like dropping down. And as we're going left to right, we're getting back into things as we go along, and the line looks kind of smooth. It's kind of hard to see, but as you start seeing the pink spikes and spiky lines going up and down, if you look at the blue line, um, going up, it's these spikes are going in unison together. And what those spikes are is basically weekly training load. So we're trying to go 2 weeks up, introduce a concept on week 1, 2 weeks up, and then a week down. All right. And so that pink coming back down, that's we're unloading some volume. So we're staying on top of it. But over a series of months, this is 3 months, or 4 months, it's a 16-week build. We're picking things up. The training load is getting more and more and more, but we're staying ahead of it. And when I first talked to this athlete, they were running something like 60 or 90 miles a week or something like that. And I pulled them down to, low 40s. And they're like, when I gave them workouts, they're like, I would do double. Well, we didn't do double, and they were able to progress. And this is something that's like, it's not just unique with me as a coach. All our coaches are doing, this analysis and looking at these things, and some even better than me. But what I wanted to kind of show here was basically is like this idea of like progressive overload. And this is really what it looks like from a training load standpoint. All right. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of show in a visual. I'm a visual learner. We can talk about it all day long, but what does it look like? All right. And that's what it looks like, is basically we peak out at an event, and then we unload some volume going into it. And then we peak for the event. It's not just one little peak for one day or one weekend. It's something that we can sustain if needed. But we pop a good one, and then we have to unload volume away from that to really recover from a muscle standpoint, which is like week 1. Week 2 is kind of tendon health. And then kind of week 4 to 6 is really brain health that we don't talk about too much. There was an interesting article in Nature that I'm going to talk about in my newsletter a little bit, but about how the brain utilizes myelin sheathing for energy, and it takes a little while to return back. Early study, we'll see. But anyway, so but training is, we're supposed to be picking things up and then unloading volume so that you can be on the fresher side, because really training is not about what you can crush out or crank out. It's really proper training. And what we're trying to teach you in training smart is how to absorb your training. If you're not absorbing your training, meaning you're fatigued, you're unmotivated to get up or do the session, or you're dragging your butt a little bit to get out the door, or all these things are fatigue related. And it's definitely part of training. We're not saying you shouldn't that you're not going to have to work hard, but at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you're absorbing it. And so by having an unloading week, we still get the intensity, but we reduce a little bit of volume. And for this coming week, it's the same as week 1. Now, why did I do that? Should we make it really dynamic? And what am I, all these questions that kind of pop up. And for me is, I'm really trying to get people to lock into it and feel the unloading. So week 2, we made a little decent jump. And then in week 3, we're going to pull back. You know how to execute it. You're going to have some residual fatigue from doing week 1 and week 2. So don't do extra. Don't do it. Okay. So let's talk about, we want to talk about the unloading. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts, really, because this is what this is all about here, is us communicating with you and you guys here to learn and grow. And let's get right into it. Okay. So do on unloading week, for the do is really follow the training plan. When I first started working with this athlete, for the example, and a lot of several of them, I had some people that never took a day off in 2 years. Now, I know a lot of us are coming from Peloton, and many are trying to get that dot and to get 1,000 runs in, or 500 runs in, or 100, whatever it is. I'm going backwards. Maybe I should have started the other way. But you're trying to get that dot, and you have to be careful with that. It's there to motivate you, but when it starts becoming, we're losing joy because we have to get that dot, we need to rethink what we're doing. Okay. So by following the plan, like I talked about last week, who's the default coach here? It's really this training plan that we're doing. So if you follow the plan, and say you follow everything and you don't get quite the results you were looking for, that's a conversation, right? That's, maybe you need to move from moderate to difficult or easy to there, that you've stabilized and kind of plateaued your training. And now it's time to do a little bit more. What most people do is they slam into it. Hey, I'm ready to go. Just having the conversation this week with a client, or today. It's like, okay, I've had some hiccups in my training due to health. I'm ready to slam into it. I'm like, slamming into it doesn't get us anywhere. We get more fatigued. So the number one do is follow the plan, follow the structure, and it'll help set you be more successful. All right. So some other things that you can do, and I'm going to kind of contradict myself on the next one, but if we're going to add anything in, it's like focusing on stretching, mobility, that kind of work. It's not about adding strength because you have more time. It's not about adding 17 things to your daily schedule because you have a little bit more space in your day. It's about taking that space. There's this concept in farming, right? Like you can't plant the same crops all the time. And so you got to rotate crops. But part of rotating crops is that there's a field left totally on its own, and that's called a fallow field. And it's basically allowing the field to kind of nature to allow the nutrients to kind of come back in. There's cover crop and all that stuff for people that are farmers or Midwesterners or around it and stuff, and changing like clover and whatever. But essentially, the concept is we need to leave a little bit of space. So these are the big do's: follow the training plan and add in a little stretching and mobility. All right. So this is where I contradict myself. Don't. What not to do, the don'ts, right? Don't do more. All right. So just said, stretching is the way to go, if we're going to add a little bit more, because oftentimes when training is picking up or life is getting busier, our schedules are getting more full, we lose out on the little things that really keep us healthy. All right. So be careful not to do more and not to fill the space in with other things. So when I unload volume in that week, sometimes people add in extra meetings and do different things. And then by the time we get to Sunday, it's like, that wasn't really like, not that it needs to be relaxing, but this idea that, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel ready. And that's a key point here that I didn't point out earlier is in an unloading week, it's not about feeling fresh next week on the week 3. It's really about coming like the following week that we're feeling more prepared, ready to go. And you might see your paces, your heart rate's a little bit lower at the paces you're being prescribed. And that's the sign that the unloading week worked. All right. And so on that chart, when things were going up and down, it's planned down so that we have the capacity to do more. And then over time, we're measuring, are we getting faster with certain tests? Are we performing better? And that's what we're really here to do, whether that's performing for a race and getting the bib on, which I highly recommend at the end of this plan and before the winter, before Thanksgiving, um, if you're in the US, because Canada Thanksgiving is a little soon. All right. But just thinking about some of these things of really embracing unloading. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about and just put on people's radar, you should be getting emails from Emily, is that we have some marathon shakeout runs coming up. So we have the Chicago, that's going to be Saturday, October 11th in Chicago, near where the race starts. We're going to go at 9 a.m. after the 5Kers, and we're going to go for 30 minutes. This is open to anyone. You can tell anyone to come. You can come to say hello after the race if you don't want to run. You can, even if you're not a Team Wilpers member or anything, come say hi to us. I'll be there, and there might be some other people there. Okay, so come check us out. Please say hello if you're doing the challenges and you meet me. Just come up, say hello. Introduce yourself. Maybe I'll recognize the name on Facebook or something like that. But come say hello, engage, and let's chat. All right, and then New York City is our next one, where we do that on the Friday, not the Saturday before the race, because Saturday the park's crazy with the Abbott 5K and different stuff. So come check us out. We usually go 10 a.m. in the morning, but we'll confirm that and check the socials. Okay. So, all right. So a couple other things on my radar is, yeah. So, yeah, I don't have anything else on my radar. That's all my notes. We're good. So big thing is, make sure you're engaging on Team Wilpers Running on Facebook. Give us a follow. Give us a follow here on YouTube down below. And the big thing is be careful with your marathon pace run. It is challenging this weekend, but you're going to get an unloading week next week. Don't bite off more than you can chew next week. Don't do extra. Don't go faster, because we're trying to control the density so that we can absorb the training that you're doing. That's the key point. All right. To absorb it. All right. And that's not over one day. That's over days. And so, and hopefully we'll see you at the shakeout run. So see you soon, and we will catch you next week.